think it's important to follow up with the pollsters and pat them on the back when they are right and kick them in the, you know what, when they're wrong. I think, for the most part, this guy is going to get a pat on the back. Welcome into my state of mind. I am Dan York. What a miserable day, right? I mean, rainy days and Mondays always get me down. Sorry, it was, oh my gosh. I mean, the rain as we are putting the program together as we speak is pelting down on our broadcast facility here in East Providence. And it's that cold, miserable rain that we all just so look forward to in November. All right, now that I've got you all in like comfy mode, you know what's good for this? Meatloaf. Why do you think I am the way I am? I mean, it's, you know, something, macaroni and cheese, something like that. Jim Morone is my guest. Morone is my guest. The E is silent, just like with me. The E is silent, but never forget the E because it drives us both crazy, I'm sure. From the Taubman Center at Brown, he is the pollster that alarmed everybody that Buddy Cianci was down 10 points and alarmed Gina Raimondo that she was down 11, but then unalarmed Gina Raimondo that she was up. Alarmed Ellen Fung that he was down 11, and then unalarmed them when he called it a dead heat. Don't worry about it. We'll work the whole thing out. And you know what? The polling data was actually pretty reliable, and I think we need to talk about that and talk about what's important to be polled in the near future. So we shall. Let us go to the rundown and check on a couple of things that are on my state of mind other than meatloaf, macaroni and cheese, and falling rain. I really do think this is the most important question. You'll find out when we get to that in a matter of moments. This is something that nobody's been paying attention to. The media, including me, have done a horrendous job following, and it is one of the biggest stealth federal projects jammed down Rhode Island's throat that we've seen in history. This is just funny. The Woonsocket mayor trying to make an arrangement with the State Ethics Commission, and it's just, I don't know, it's a stitch, but it's kind of sad too. You shouldn't. If you do, you shouldn't. As a Giant fan, I'm telling you, you shouldn't. And we'll check your state of mind as well. Okay? So let's dig in. Yeah, this first issue, I think there is a question that we have to get to, and I'll explain that in a second. But the headlines are running hot and heavy now that the president is back from Asia, and he's talking about an executive order on immigration. And he's doing that because he now no longer has to cover Democrats who are fighting for re-election or election, as the case may be. He lost that battle primarily in the Senate, right? And of course, the House of Representatives has a bigger Republican majority as well. But the president feels like we got to shake this whole thing up, and I think he's looking to put a stick in the eye of Republicans. The executive orders are not written or published yet, but my guess, the administration will make this excuse that they can decide how to enforce existing law by executive order rather than rewrite existing law, which would be unconstitutional. So the constitutional battle will be interesting, but perhaps just not on target. This is government broken. This is a president who's not speaking with Congress, but this is a Congress who continues to threaten that if there's any kind of amnesty for a significant amount of the illegal population, that they don't want to come to the table. I'm not so sure that works. Here's one Republican just elected.
We still hope to be able to reach out and work with the president on it. We're not pursuing some government shutdown. I think what people misunderstood at the time was how many people really detested what was happening in their personal lives and their businesses with Obamacare. And we're trying to find every way possible to be able to communicate this is a real problem. It's not a website problem. It's a real problem that affects every single American, every single business.
New senator-elect just kind of wandered aimlessly back into Obamacare. I guess he was tying the two together because our last government shutdown had much to do with the arguments over Obamacare. But if Republicans decide to shut down over illegal immigration, I think it'll be a terrible, terrible mistake. Here's the thing that the president, I think, is rightfully frustrated with, and which I think we all have got to reconcile. Here's the most important question. Are we ready to say that 14 million people in this country who are here illegally can stay, albeit paying taxes, fees, getting on the right kind of protocols, all of that? If we are willing to say they can stay, then we can make this immigration reform deal tomorrow. If as a country we still have this fantasy that a bunch of yellow school buses are going to show up and ship 4 to 5 million people at least out of the country, That's not going to happen, and we're going to get nowhere. So ask yourself that important question. If the answer is yes, then we can make a deal. And executive orders don't need to happen. If the answer is no, executive orders are going to happen, whether you like them or not. And I'm not happy about it, but we got to face the facts. All righty, let me move on here. Roadmap RI. Have you paid attention to this thing? This is crazy, man. Check the headline. Yeah, the protests are coming fast and furious now. There's a deadline for a plan to be sent up to some economic panel that we've got established in bureaucracy here in the state. This is about a plan. We had two planners from the state who were working with federal money to put this RI roadmap together. I don't know when we aired that show, but I still didn't understand what they were doing after they spent a half an hour with me. I got to get them back because now I got to kind of figure out what they're doing. They're using federal money with an Obama administration mantra to start what's really a social equity forced plan onto communities under the guise that they're trying to redevelop the economy. And what you find is you've got all these community players that are participating in these open forums, one of which was last week, caught on tape by Go Local Prov, and you can see how friendly and congenial and diplomatic these discussions are.
Because of its racist policies in terms of blocking. Let me finish, ma'am.
Every time you call us a racist, I'm going to interrupt you. Because we're not supposed to be calling names.
Could you please silence her?
Please, he's not calling you a racist. He's
Black and Hispanic people.
Stop it!
You are
I'm tired of this.
It's about the rights of the people of Rhode Island.
yes.
See,
You're crazy. You're batshit crazy.
All right. I mean, you
Insulted everyone in this
you
room.
folks have no credibility.
It's about
You are a
individual
bunch of
rights.
extremists. You don't even understand
Individual
what this
rights.
is all about.
Recognizing.
Okay then, we got to get these folks in here. The truth is that we've been told that we've got an economic development plan here and an overall lifestyle plan for Rhode Island. And what it's turned out to be, without economic plans, what it's turned out to be is simply an argument over how many low-income housing units can be forced into communities and adaptation from that core exercise. And we just haven't had an honest conversation about what this whole thing has been all about. And words like racism and bigotry and all that kind of stuff are being used by the advocates for the plan against people who are just saying, wait a second, I'm not sure this works. We'll bring Mike Stenhouse on. He's one of the chief opponents. He said he's mad too. Look at the radio. I mean,
the strings attached to the money that comes from those federal funds from HUD supersede local zoning, housing, and planning ordinances. They are seizing control of land in our states, and we can't let it happen.
Okay, so that's what the opponents think. We'll get back with the proponents too, but could you pay attention to this thing? Because we haven't done a good job, and it's happening right under our nose, and I'm sure there are good sides to both arguments. All right, finally, or not almost finally, an ethics deal in Woonsocket. Yeah, let me zip through this for a second. Here's the headline. The Woonsocket mayor is asking for advice on a nephew's job. The very idea that she's asking advice to the Ethics Commission about a nephew's job is hilarious. She's got a learning disability. She doesn't seem to understand that you can't hire your nephew as a city job employee. You can't hire your son. Her first saga was when she hired her son. You know, her son's baseball team, they all got together and for a dinner, she said, hey, you kids want to clean the streets? And she hired him for a DPW job. Never publicized the opportunity, never advertised it for everybody's option. And it was a $6,000 line item in the Woonsocket budget that should never have happened, even though they might have done a little good work. So she gets an ethics violation filed against her, a complaint, and they're working that out. Now she's recommended that she just go ahead and cover the check that her son made, and then she wants some advice on whether she can hire her son again. Now she wants advice on whether she can hire her nephew. Jim Hummel from the Hummel Report, who started this whole thing, was trying to get some answers from her the other day.
Okay.
Is your nephew
Jim,
Tyler
really,
Driscoll?
can you just understand that today is about economic
That's why
development?
we waited until after the press conference. We didn't ask
that's
you
right.
questions
so
while you were at the
if you would like to make an
podium.
appointment with my secretary,
I have you.
And so, you know what? This is a completely dysfunctional mayor right now. She's got some good attributes. She won't answer Hummel's questions, but she spent a whole lot of time answering his questions the first time, which got her in the hot water because she told all about how she hired all the kids. Lisa, you can't hire relatives. It's a basic question. You don't need it. It's basic. Okay, finally. I just wanted to say, as a Giant fan, I hope you people who are Patriots fans, who are most of you, don't take this for granted. I mean, how many times have you seen Tom Brady say something like this?
You know, I thought we controlled the line of scrimmage, which was huge, and Jonas ran great. But it all starts with the big guys up front, and they played a great game.
Yeah. And I got to deal with this only feeling on a Monday rainy night, knowing that as a fan, you're out of the playoffs. Jim Morone from Brown. He's got his own numbers coming up right after we do our State of Mind, which is where I get feedback from you. All you have to do is call us, Facebook post, tweet at us, or tweet at us. That'd be a new way of doing it. Here's a post. Kevin says, excellent interview on a very divisive topic. We'll be sharing this segment with colleagues and friends. He's referring to, I believe, the conversation we had with a young man from Ponagansett who's transgendered and coaching the youths. He's a courageous guy, and it is something that people ought to talk more about rather than just have judgment. All right, our guest when we come back. Stay with us. Like I said at the top, you know, pats on the back or kicks in the booty. Guess what? It's pats in the back. Look at these numbers that at least came in close to the end. This was the second governor's race poll that the Taubman Institute did, and it came right down to that. What we perhaps didn't know is that Bob Healy would get just about all of those undecided numbers, and with statistical deviations kind of counted in, here's the final election result. Wow. I mean, you could see where a little bit of the separation occurred, and if you go back to our archives and what Professor Jim and I talked about, is that we thought that there might be a little bit of a built-in master lever and organizational Democratic push that would give Gina her edge, and it was. Welcome.
Exactly.
Good to see you. Congratulations.
Thanks. Good to see you again.
Sam, when you do a great job, we should say, I mean, I think you more or less hit that on the head, but even guys like you and me have to be somewhat flummoxed over the idea that all those undecided votes went to one guy and not the contenders.
And as you said, a shave and a haircut away from the governorship.
Right.
But we said on the show, we thought it was Gina by 3 points, and that was pretty close. But no, I wasn't expecting that big surge to Healy. That's a surprise.
Well, you're a political scientist. What do you think happened there?
I think people are just fed up with politics as usual. It's what happened in Congress. It's what happened across New England. New England going for Republicans. And I think the message for Democrats is we're Democrats here. We're Democrats in the state. We're Democrats in New England. And you're just not doing it for us. You're not speaking to us. And what people really care about, we've got poll after poll on this. We're worried about the economy. We're worried about inequality. What are you guys talking about? You're not talking about economic inequality, and you're not talking about how you're going to fix it. So everything is up for grabs now. Everything's fluid. So Gina got in because she's a Democrat in a Democratic state. But if I'm a Democrat, I'm thinking, you know what? It's time to really address what people are worried about.
And if you're Gina and you just heard Professor Morone just say that, you keep a stiff upper lip because you just won. But you got to be thinking, Craves, I got a lot of work to do here. Yes?
You won with 41% of the vote. You're not feeling very comfortable with 41% of the vote. That is a long way to 50. So you've got to sit down now and never mind the honeymoon period. You've got to figure out, at a minimum, I better get to 50, and I better get to 50 fast. So she's got to really think hard, I think, about how to speak to voters.
So you mean get to 50 and now in favorability ratings and the polls? Will you do another poll?
We will.
At some juncture?
Now that we've broken the ice, we will get in there and start doing favorability ratings, and we really want to focus on what's on people's minds. So we'll give people a little while to sort this out, and then we'll go back in there.
You know what? When you figure out what's on people's minds, let me know, because I've been talking to them on the radio for the better part of the last 15 years here and on this television show for over a year now. And while I love my audience and I love my neighbors, I can't figure out what's on their minds. I had a fascinating conversation with a friend the other day. She explained to me all the reasons why she legitimized her mistaken vote on no on question 3. In other words, she voted no on question 3. I asked her why. She suddenly realized she didn't, and then she made all the excuses as to why she should have to know what the hell is going on in the world. And I don't know what's on people's minds around here.
Well, there is this horror. There is this horror for every pollster and every political scientist that it's all just random. People have their feelings, but they haven't really thought them through. Now, the whole science of polling is based on you actually know what you want. And when we ask you, you'll tell us. And you're always raising the thing we hate to talk about, which is people feel good or they feel bad, but they don't really know why. And a lot of people say, well, people feel good or they feel bad, but it's the economy, stupid. If the economy's humming, if people are feeling secure, all that other stuff will go away. But, you know, deep down inside, when you wake the pollster in the middle of the night, what they really fear is people have no idea what the blazes they're talking about. That makes it pretty scary for us.
All right. He also hit the mayor's head. Mayor's race. I'm having one of those nights. The mayor's race on the head next. Jim Morone is from the Taubman Center at Brown University, and he really caused a big problem when he declared this number in the mayor's race to be the latest piece of data. We had Buddy Cianci up right back in late September, and then in October, he decides to throw these numbers out, and all hell break loose. And you know, Brown's conspiracy against Buddy Cianci was launched, and then we had election results that looked like this, and you hit it on the number.
Yeah, we did on this one.
So here is my, you hit it on the number, and all of the Bradley effect that we thought might be occurring, where, you know, Cianci supporters wouldn't be saying they're Cianci supporters, and maybe they'll do something else, and you were kind of hedging your bets because you were kind of worried yourself.
You were teasing me about that on the air.
Bingo.
It was bingo. 10 points. We said 10 points. It was 9 points. It was really close. We were really close. The election wasn't. There's a couple of things that jump out at you about this, though. The reason this seems so surprising is you talk to people, you go downtown, you talk to people, and they are so strong for Buddy Cianci. So this is a case where the polls didn't seem to be telling us the truth. We did 2 polls. I said, no, I'm not going to release those results. Go back in. And in the meantime, the governor's race is cooking, and I'm saying we're holding all that back. We did a second poll, same thing. So we got that. But you know as well as I do, there are lots of fervent Cianci supporters, and what you can't feel good about here is the divide between the East Side and the rest of Providence. That people feel so strongly, but then you were just telling me when we were off the air, you saw it when the East Side results were coming in at the end. You just knew it was all going to swing, and the fervency on the East Side against Cianci and everywhere else for Cianci is really
almost
striking.
everywhere else.
Yeah, almost everywhere else. We had broken this down by
the
region,
South
and you
side
could see.
was a little better for Elorza than I thought he was going to.
We had that strong for Cianci in our poll.
It wasn't quite as strong.
And it wasn't quite as strong as we expected.
But, you know, it's the East Side, it's the East Side, the East Side, and he thought he could withstand the East Side. I mean, I don't think he understood what the tsunami was on the East Side. But you nailed it, and you weighted it right, and so you're now going forward, your polls are going to be, you know, instrumental in elections because you were so close to the number. What do you think the moral of the story was with that election?
You know, part of it's the young voters. You know, the young voters don't remember the halcyon Cianci days. And Cianci looked people in the eye and said, I gave Rhode Island self-confidence. But the kids downtown, to them, it's an arts place, it's restaurants, place is great, there's rivers, there's water fire. It's like it was always like this. And our poll actually picked up, and that surprised me a little bit. Young people across the board were not going for Cianci. And that's because ironically, what Cianci did, what his supporters are so fervent about, they now take that for granted. It's what are you going to do for me tomorrow? So I think that's one of the messages.
Yet the real story of the city is facing up to a $25 million deficit again. It's in financial disrepair, and you know, practical answers are going to have to come. I hope this guy Elorza's got them.
The good news already built in. Everybody takes it for granted. The bad news, the crime rates, what are we going to do? Same thing as in the governor, same thing as in Rhode Island. What are we going to do about the economics here? How are we going to keep young people in town? How are we going to jumpstart things?
So, real short, we've polled the pulse. We know people are unhappy. Their quality of life issues. They're concerned about the future of the state. But I wonder if there's a perverse satisfaction that they're happy about being unhappy. How do you poll that in 30 seconds? How do you poll that?
You know, that's one of those polls where I have to get beyond the doorstep answer, beyond what people sort of will give you immediately, and what they really think. Not what they think you want them to think, but what they really think. And I think the first thing, we're going to form a couple of focus groups and really dig in on this. How do we get people to tell us the truth? Because as you say, do Rhode Islanders really kind of like the Rhode Island reputation? 4% of our poll told us they think Rhode Island's got a better government than the states around us. Do they secretly like that or not? We're going to dig in and find out.
All right, next poll. He's on the money. You got to trust him
Thanks,
now.
Dan. Listen to the
Nicely
man.
done. Be right back. Now, one more thing. I have to say, if you could find a pollster who could actually figure out how we think about what we think about, that'd be really interesting. Because I know that we always are thumbs downing everything. But I think Jim Morone has got a kind of an interesting thought about trying to figure out whether we enjoy being thumbs down about everything. Because that might be an answer that we didn't expect. Anyway, this polling thing is fascinating. I will see you tomorrow on the radio at noon on WPRO, where we hang out for 3 hours. Phone me there, or of course, phone me here on My State of Mind. It will return tomorrow night at 7:30 and 11:30. And by the way, if you missed the show, foxprovidence.com. Good night.